I don't think I've ever felt less significant walking up to a stage than I just felt. The man is adored in Baltimore, known to Baltimore quite simply as Cal. If you don't call him Cal, you call him the Iron Man. And you call him that because in 1995, he single-handedly captured America's attention once again for baseball after the 1994 strike. He's played 21 seasons with the Orioles, Rookie of the Year, two-time MVP, World Series champ, two-time Gold Glove winner, 8-time Silver Slugger Award winner, 19-time All-Star. In 2 of those All-Star games, he won the MVP. Cal, I'm personally not clapping for 2 All-Star MVPs because I can understand you only winning 2 MVPs for 162 games. Well, you played 19 All-Star games and you only won 2 MVPs? What's wrong with you? 19 All-Star games, Cal.
Well, you had to split time. You didn't get to play the whole game.
Okay, all right.
Although one time I did play 14 innings in Pittsburgh
Okay.
For the All-Star game. But you're right, I should have performed better.
Yeah, you should have performed better. I need you to do better, Cal. Listen, you're a Maryland guy. I often tell the story to embarrass Cal for the younger people in the room because is Torrey Smith here right now? Torrey Smith's son, I don't want to embarrass Torrey, so I will. Torrey Smith's son said, "Who's Cal Ripken?"
Yeah.
I wish Cal was in the room to hear that, but he wasn't. So let me explain something to you, and I'm going to completely embarrass him right now. Cal Ripken's consecutive game streak began when I was in elementary school. Where's my son Robbie? My son Robbie's 25 years old. It ended a week before he was born. That's what you need to give him a hand for, because none of us have gone to work all those days in a row. None of us have.
Well, you got to keep in mind that being a professional athlete is not work. You get to play a game for a living. It's a pretty good job.
Right.
Gets paid pretty good. Wish I played in this era.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You left some money on the table.
But no, you got to play a game for the living. You got to live. You didn't have to grow up until 41.
Right.
Until your career was over, and then you go into the real world. But I was lucky. I was one of the lucky ones, for sure.
You were very lucky, and you transformed that luck into doing for other people. What you're doing now through your foundation and what you're doing in the community is outstanding. Now, with all the things that you could do in life, all the other options you have in life, why do you feel it's important to help kids have a safe place once again?
Well, I think a lot of that had to do with my dad. Billy and I grew up. I had 21 years in the big leagues. My brother Billy had 12 years in the big leagues. He jumped around for 2 other teams. And we always thought that we were the lucky ones because we had the encyclopedia of baseball as a dad. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of dads think they're the encyclopedia of baseball. A lot of kids think that their dads are the encyclopedia of baseball, but ours actually was. Mm-hmm. And you realize that we could help other kids become the best players that they could be. And so Dad had a teaching background. He had aspirations to be a big league player, but he got hurt in the minor leagues and then went in. His whole goal was to help kids get to the big leagues, in other ways. And then he used baseball also, in his off time to get in front of kids, to expose them to the goodness of sport and give them some options. So, that was sort of Dad's legacy. And I think at 41 years old, when you have a long career in baseball, your life's not over. You don't play golf every day or stay in your pajamas,
right.
In retirement. You have a second chance to do something. And Billy and I felt very strongly that we wanted to help kids. So we got involved in youth baseball, mostly from teaching in the beginning, mm-hmm. and then to having tournament destinations and complexes to give the kids the same sort of experience that we had in the big leagues, like the joy of playing in a place like Fenway Park or the Yankee Stadium, the different dimensions. We started to bring those things to life and try to make the 9 and 10-year-old kids feel like they were big leaguers, because all the people that play baseball, this many of us get a chance to go all the way to the top and have a career out of it. But there's so many more kids that can enjoy what we're providing.
Yeah, that's great, because you're right. Not many people get to go play Major League Baseball. You've done a lot of work in the inner city. I'm from inner city of Baltimore, product of Baltimore City Public School. Graduated from Northern High If any Vikings are in the house, probably not. But you've done a lot to try to revive what's going on in the inner cities with the underprivileged. Why do you feel athletics and activity is important in those communities?
Yep. Let me say, you see me twisting my arm up here and kind of going like this all the time, and being introduced as the Iron Man. I have an injury right now, and I have a herniation at C6, C7. So if you're familiar with that, it affects the nerve root that runs down your left arm. And so I'm a little uncomfortable right now. And I'm laughing at myself because I played all those games and didn't get hurt. And then since I've had surgery, since I retired 2 or 3 times, not really good. But what I did was pretty dumb. I was looking at other ways to exercise, and I have a rowing machine at home, so I started rowing. And I went through what I call little interval training, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, probably at half, 60%. And I got a good sweat, got a good workout in, did a whole bunch of reps, and I'm sitting there looking at this little menu thing on the screen, and I'm thinking, I wonder how fast I can pull 100 meters. And so then I pulled at 100%, bam, 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 and I got the results I was looking for. I was going, damn, that's good. About 4 hours later, I started feeling this pain down my left arm. So that would be the equivalent, and I think my son's here too, is I went out with my son, and my son would say, Dad, let's see how fast you can run the 60-yard dash. And I would blow both quads out, both hammies out, my back and everything else. And I'm smarter than that.
Right.
But anyway, I guess I wasn't. So now I'm suffering the consequences. Now, what was the question again?
Something about, I don't know.
It was about our work in the
your work in the cities.
So the value of sport, I think we all inherently know that there are lessons that are learned in it. I think when we were kids, and we're playing the sport, we did it because it was kind of fun, and then maybe your parents got you involved in it, whatever there was. You didn't really know you were learning all these values that could be applied to everything else in life.
If we didn't know we were learning, we'd stop playing.
Right.
We want to learn.
Yeah, but teamwork, individual responsibility, your work ethic, discovering the secret, the power that you have in your own ability to work harder and be better. That's something that a lot of athletes have in common, that they understand that. So, even after I retired at 41, you go into business and you're thinking you spotted everybody else 20, 25 years ahead of you. But you can apply some of those things, and you could work hard knowing you can get better and knowing you can still learn. And so all those lessons that my dad really believed in. And then you have a position as a baseball player. We have a platform to help people and to do good things. My mom and my dad always said, community is important. You need to be involved in the community. And my mom even said, look, just think, if you become a big league baseball player and you sign for a lot of money, look how you can help with actually your time and your money. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And so when I signed my first contract, my 4-year deal, I got involved in a literacy program in Baltimore. And so I've always been open-minded to doing those things. And then once you start to do them, you start to see the power in your influence and the way that you can help. And then when Dad died, and we started the foundation and named it Dad, his legacy, it was in helping kids. He did it professionally, and he did it personally as well. So we tried to do that. We tried to create something that would be in Dad's image and Dad's legacy, and to help kids. And we did that through baseball. It's not rocket science by any means, but going in some environments, and you're teaching hitting for the very first time in some of these places. And when you teach hitting for the first time, and you have a pretty athletic kid that's never done it before, he's holding the bat way like this or cross-handed, you adjust the handle, and all of a sudden, pow, the ball comes off his bat, the eyes light up and all that kind of stuff, and now you kind of hooked him a little bit, and then you can kind of guide him. And so the foundation has been really wonderful, where we've used baseball as the icebreaker, or the sports as the icebreaker. And then once you create a trusting relationship through mentorships and those sorts of things, then you can help guide the kids in other ways as well. So we couldn't be more proud to do things in Dad's name.
You talk about you getting these kids getting their first hit. I'm sure you remember your first hit as a big league and all your big league experience. What kind of joy do you get when you know you just reached the kid, when you know you just helped the kid? Forget about just playing baseball, but you connect with him or her in another way.
I mean, it's a really good feeling. There was a couple of moments, is like when you teach some kid how to hit, and they do it successfully for the first time, there's this joy that comes over them. I thought it was really cool when someone asked me for my autograph for the very first time. On the other side of that, you're in the minor leagues,
right,
and you're almost asking someone to ask you to sign your name. But once you do that, and then some of the reactions, when you sign your name on a card and then their face lights up and they run and show their mom and dad or something like that, that's the same sort of feeling. Right. It grows inside of you.
And you'll learn a lot of lessons as an athlete. You talked about turning 41 and having to turn the page. What have you learned during this chapter?
Well, I've learned that now I've been out of baseball longer than I played. So my last year was 01, so I'm 23 years out of baseball, and I played for 21 years. That's a 44-year window of time. Damn, how'd that happen? How'd this happen? What was the question again?
What have you learned in your post-career, your second career, so to speak?
I learned that a lot of the things you learn in sport translates to what you're trying to do now. Again, I thought that I was at ground zero, but you're not at ground zero. You've learned a lot of things. You've had experience in the media. You've had experience understanding when you're doing well, and then you have an understanding too when you're not. I mean, I lived through a time when the Orioles started the season 0-6, and my dad was the manager of the team, and they fired my dad. And so we all got together and as a team. We decided to lose 15 more in a row just to prove that it wasn't my dad's fault. I'm glad you guys saw that as a joke, because it was intended to be a joke. But the joke was real, is that we did lose 21 games to start the season, and it was the worst kind of thing you could go through. But it taught you a lot about yourself. You know, you could run away from that challenge, or you could look for ways to figure out, how do we find the light at the end of the tunnel? How do we get through this? And having gone through something that horrific, you can live off that experience. So what I learned from my baseball career is that a lot of the things translate, but also you have a wealth of experience in different areas that you can tap into to help solve problems.
How many coaches here? Coaches, athletic directors? Most of us are. I'm a coach as well. You've seen that moment, Cal, where maybe you couldn't get through the kids. Maybe it just wasn't working. We've all been there before, right? You know, maybe we didn't have enough resources. Whatever it is, it just wasn't enough. What advice would you have to the coaches out here who've been through that before?
Just resources, you mean?
Anything. Resources, time, kids just aren't listening. So maybe you have parents who want to be the coaches.
Let's start with resources. Let's start with resources just for a second. Because my dad managed in the minor leagues, which meant he got paid really nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it didn't make, so he had to work 3 jobs in the off season to make ends meet. You know, he worked in a drugstore, he worked in a lumber company, and he drove a beverage truck in the off season. So we didn't have resources necessarily. I mean, Dad was part of the, so when he was trying to give us things to help us, one example would be the Orioles in spring training had this 72-foot batting cage. And it had all these holes in it, and they were going to throw it out. So my dad said, "You're going to throw that out?" And they said, "Yeah." He said, "You mind if I take it?" So then he came home, he doubled the 72 feet and made, or doubled it, put it to make it 36 feet. So now all the holes were kind of, and you kind of mended the nets or whatever else. He cut a hole in the end, and then he built a pitching machine from spare parts that he had, and he created a pitching machine that threw through the hole so we could stand in there and do things. So he did that kind of stuff all the time. We edged our driveway with 2 nails and a string and a hatchet. So, I mean, and you were thinking, what happened to that electric thing that could go up and down the thing where we can get done like that? So he taught us all those things, and you could be innovative. We had a soccer team that he wanted to create a soccer team. We didn't have a field to play on. He asked the guy that owned the farm, can we use that lower field as a soccer field? So we all went down there, measured it out, cut it out, and made it useful. So that there are ways that you can look around you and then figure out how to get the resources that you might need, you know, to help do things. So I learned that lesson to him, is that if there's a will, there's a way. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. All right. Now to the, you know, you have parents,
the advice.
Parents.
So the advice, and I learned this from my dad, is, I guess, and I've experienced this myself, you have to be the most patient people as coaches. And I think sometimes if you're not patient, you can actually rile them up and create pressure. If I had the ability to make one thing happen all across youth sports or in my experience, I would say, how do we diffuse the pressure early on in kids? When the kids are starting to learn how to play the game, not necessarily winning is the most important part, development of skills and those sorts of things. I had an example when my son was 8, and he was learning how to play baseball. And the other coach on the other team was all happy, and he was playing to win at 8 years old. And so I was looking over at him, and I was thinking, okay, we'll get through this. So our pitcher threw 4 balls in a row, walked the guy. And then then you hear them, they all out to the second hitter, hey, that was 4 in a row. That's 4 in a row. Make sure he throws a strike. So then after 6 in a row and 7 in a row, he goes, that's 7 in a row. And so what happened was you end up walking bases loaded,
right.
Wild pitches to the backstop, people run and score, people over-cheer that they're running to score, and he's high-fiving everybody else, and our pitcher is crying on the mound. And so you're looking at him, and so if you wanted to win at 8 years old, I could tell your kids to take until they get to 2 strikes. Don't swing the bat at all. They'll walk you, then they'll run around the bases, and then you'll win the game. But you haven't learned how to hit, you haven't learned how to field, you haven't done that kind of stuff. So I called over to the coach, I go, you want to win that bad? And he goes, yeah. I go, okay, we forfeit, so now let's just play a practice game. And so we would tell our kids, strategies like hitting 3-0 at 8 years old, it doesn't matter. You want them to swing the bat. So either swing on the first pitch, swing on 3-0, just swing and try to hit the ball. And then you get those concepts that build up. And then, so sometimes we as parents get a little bit into the game, and we press, and our competitive nature comes out, and we want to win. I would like to just, my advice would be, take a step back, realize the bigger picture, be a little bit more patient, and let them develop. And try to alleviate pressure. I would say, do not do a post-game analysis on the way home. When something goes bad in the car, do not address that. That's going to end bad every single time. They're not going to listen. Right. You're going to get upset. Just figure out what you might want to say. Wait a little while, until they calm down, maybe, half a day or so, or the next day, and then try to impart that teaching. When my dad was in the minor leagues, it was really interesting. I was the bat boy at 10 years old. And I saw the pitcher for tomorrow's game was keeping the charts. So they had to keep the charts of every single pitch that was down, and they kept score. And so when somebody would make a mistake on the field, my dad would walk over to him and say, put a red dot right there in that box. And so they put a red dot in that box. So after the game was over, my dad would look at the collection of red dots, go back and look at the situations and remember what those things were, and they would create these little index cards. So when the player walked through the door the next day after the game, he would call him in, and say, hey, come in here for a minute. Last night, you got thrown out of third base when we're down by 2 runs. You don't want to do that. Time to take a chance is when we're up 2 runs, da-da-da-da. And the outfielder had a really strong arm, and it wasn't the smartest thing to do. Okay, fine. But I love how you're swinging the bat. Keep going. And the guy would walk out of the room like 30 seconds later. His chest would be all up. He'd be all happy. But he would learn what would happen. If you tried to do that during the course of the game, they're already upset that they made a mistake. And they would fight you a little bit, and then you would be emotional because you're costing us the game, and then nothing would get done. So at the professional level, if you can do that, you certainly can do it at the 8 to 12-year-old level where you're, and when I helped out for my son's baseball team, I kept a little notebook, and so I wrote things down. That was my way of doing it. And the other coaches that would yell and scream things out, I brought them a notebook in. And I said, if something happens, don't yell out, just write it down. And then we'll figure out together, is this a team-oriented thing to fill, or is this an individual thing? Because if it's an individual thing, you want to protect, you don't want to embarrass them. You want to talk to them in private, and you want to explain what happens, because kids are really, really sensitive to that. So I don't know, that was some broad advice.
No, that was great. It was great. Every moment's a teaching moment, make it a learning moment. We're going to open it up to some questions from our audience. We have microphones floating somewhere. Anybody have questions?
Yeah.
Can you address the idea of playing multiple sports rather than right now it seems like there's a whole lot of people that are focused on playing single sports, less
Yeah, can everybody hear the question? It's about multiple sports. It's the normal question. I'm a big advocate of playing other sports. For one of the reasons is maybe the kids aren't ready to play 70 or 80 games, and we're in the tournament business, and we sell that. But maybe they're not ready mentally or whatever else. And I would be concerned that mentally they get a little burned out. You want to grow that seed of that desire and that fun inside of them. You want to have fun so when they get up to a higher level and they got to call on themselves, they're going to have to call on the love of what they do. You don't want to kill that seed by playing too much. I played basketball, soccer, and baseball. And my belief is that you develop the athleticism because other sports challenges you in ways that you might not get in your own sport. And so soccer gave me a lot of wind. We ran a lot of hills, gave me some lower half strength. But when you're doing something without your hands and you're kicking with both feet and you're moving in all different directions, your agility and your balance is really affected, and you develop that more. Basketball was very quick twitch. You're moving very quickly from side to side. You're jumping multiple times. You're developing that sort of quickness. So that when it's time to actually choose which sport that you want to focus on, you then have built the athleticism to do that. So I'm an advocate to that. And if you're leading it, if you're guiding your kid as a parent or a coach, and you're forcing them to do something, you might want to reconsider. What you're doing. If the kid is leading you and saying, I love baseball, I can't get enough of it, and then all he wants to do, then I'm fine with that as long as the kid is leading that. But I think there's a huge value in putting the glove down and then giving your arm a rest from throwing the ball, let it recover. So in different seasons, pick up the basketball, pick up football, do something else that will, in the long run, help you when it's time to specialize. So it's happening much earlier now, and a lot of times there's pressures. If you're going to stay on this team, and this coach is they're a really good coach, you got to commit to fall ball and the off-season training and all that kind of stuff. I will say, if you have a super talented kid, you have the power, because you can say, well, I don't really think I want to do that. Maybe we won't play for your team. And I guarantee you that coach will say, okay, I'll change my rules. And maybe that could be a model and example for other people because they want to grab the best kids.
Yeah. Anyone else? Right here.
So, what advice would you give us as coaches where you have some parents that are unapologetic about living their lives through their children? Like they'll tell you, I didn't make it, I'm living, like they are very intentional about that. Sure. And so for me, I'm in basketball, and so you have parents standing on the side, literally coaching their son or daughter through the game, and then they move towards the coach's side of the bench because they want to be heard.
Yeah.
What advice do you give programs like mine that are trying to go to the model of, hey, it's not about winning,
right,
it's about development. This is a marathon. No one's getting a scholarship in elementary.
Right.
But they believe with social media, with a lot of the things that are out there, NIL now, where kids are actually getting opportunities in elementary and middle school.
Right.
What do you continue to reiterate to those families that this is not that serious right now?
I feel for you. I think personally that you're the coach. If you're the coach of the team, you have an opportunity to set your own rules with the relationship with the parents. And there becomes a certain age where the parents, it should be the kids going to the coach and having that relationship as opposed to going to the parents and the parents going to the coach. And usually it's about playing time. My kid's not playing. Why isn't my kid playing? He's not going to get a scholarship that way, or all this kind of stuff. So I don't know how. That's an individual coach to the group of parents, and maybe setting the tone, maybe having meetings and understanding that before any of the season takes place might be a good thing. Doesn't mean you still have to enforce it and police it, I guess, when you go on. I know the parents, at our complexes, that's the only problems we ever have, really, as the parents, maybe umpires too. But parents and umpires, sometimes that's a lethal combination. But you know,
Sometimes it's insane.
how we handled that is, like, sometimes the umpires feel like they're going to run the game. They're going to bark and yell. If somebody's yelling at a call, they'll come over and warn the bench. You know, if I hear another word from you guys, I'm throwing you out of the game. And invariably, they turn around and somebody chirps. And then they got to turn around. They don't know who said it, but they got to feel like they got to throw the coach or somebody out of the game. And then it becomes a negative sort of experience. So the way that we handle it in our complexes is, and we tell the umpires, if there's an issue like that, don't handle it yourself. Turn around, call timeout. Doesn't matter what the situation is. Go back and tell our tournament director. So it used to be we had orange shirts sitting behind the thing in a little booth. Tell them, and then we'll call somebody, and then the game will be delayed, and they'll come and go to the area that's causing the problem, and they'll say basically, we have zero tolerance for this. If you continue this behavior or whatever else, then you'll be ejected or thrown out of the game. And usually that works because everybody's looking at you, and you brought attention to that issue before it got out of control. And that works pretty well. In the beginning of our games, there's a message from me about a sportsmanship message. And then and so it resonates with my voice. And then if a thing occurs, then I have my brother Billy come in. He's got a recorded message that said, we're not kidding. You're going to be out of here, or something like that. It's a little harsher message. And I tricked him to doing the second message as opposed to the first. But I mean, that has worked overall. If you're running that, is that you want to nip it in the bud before. You know how it's going to accelerate. It's never going to end well if the umpire either initiates the conflict or the parents are yelling back and forth. But the coaching, the relationship between the coach and their parents, I think you'd have to start to handle that, or try to have a meeting at the start of the season and say, here's our rules. Don't email me about playing time. Don't do all these kind of stuff. And I think by and large, if you set the tone early, you have a chance to actually enforce that.
Ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable Cal Ripken Jr.
I was going to explain. I'd love to sit here and talk to you all day. I'm going to the British Embassy tonight to have dinner down there, and so I got to go back to Annapolis and then to D.C. and be there by 7 o'clock. But thank you very much for having me.